Hello, people there in FA, which is just probably not, but if you happen to stumble upon this video, today we are doing power rankings before the NFL draft. Obviously, I don't feel like making graphics and everything, so we're doing this on tiermaker.com. All these are going to be read left to right, so obviously, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and etc. Obviously, all these takes are casual, and these are not taking into account any mock drafts or any things that did not happen. For example, like everyone, we're saying that AJ Brown is getting traded, but as of right now, he's still on the team, so I'm ranking it as of that. At number 32, we have the Dolphins. The Dolphins quite literally have nothing on their team. No amazing defensive players. They signed Malik Willis to a 3-year, $67 million contract, and then removed all his wide receivers. I mean, they do have 2 picks in the draft, but I said I'm not taking that into account. I think they're single-handedly the worst team right now with the assets. No wide receivers. Wide receiver 1 is Tutu Atwell. That sums about their team pretty well. They do have good running backs, but that's about it. At number 31, I'm going to have the Cardinals. Cardinals are in a similar situation to the Dolphins, except for I think the Cardinals' defense is just better. I think their secondary isn't horrendous. Josh Sweat's a nice piece off the edge. I mean, and obviously, I don't think they're going to end up rolling with Gardner Minshew or Jacoby Brissett as their starting QB. Maybe like a Ty Simpson or probably a Garrett Nussmeier. It's probably going to end up being their starting quarterback. But as I said, not taking that into account. I mean, Marvin Harrison's still a developmental piece. Michael Wilson looked really good last season. Their running back situation's not that good. And again, probably end up getting a top 3 pick in the 2027 draft, I would say. At number 30, I'm going to have the Jets. The Jets are another team that probably tanking for another season for like an Arch or a Dante Moore type of player. Obviously, they made a lot of defensive moves during free agency, brought in a lot of those guys. But other than that, their offense isn't amazing. They're holding Breece Hall hostage. # free Breece Hall. Garrett Wilson's coming off an injury. And at the end of the day, Geno Smith is going to be their starting QB. So they're not going to win a lot of games. At 29, I'm going to have the Titans. Obviously, it's going to be Cam Woods' second season. But another one of those teams where they added a lot of defensive pieces during free agency. I don't think it's really enough to get them to be outside of a top 10 worst team. They still really have no one to throw the ball to. Calvin Ridley would technically still be their wide receiver 1. If you want to fight for Wan'Dale, maybe he could be wide receiver 1. But personally, I just don't think he should be a wide receiver 1. They're going to need to end up getting someone. Their running game isn't amazing with Tony Pollard. They should just let Tyjae Spears take over and see what he could do. And their O-line isn't horrible, I have to say. It's okay. But I don't love it. At 28, I'm going to have the Browns. The Browns, it's extremely low for them because if we were just ranking them based on their defense, this is a top 5 defense. And it surprises me year after year after how good their defenses are, but their offensive can't do anything. And if we're talking about the team right now, their wide receiver 1 is Jerry Jeudy, and their wide receiver 2 is Isaiah Bond, a dude that was undrafted last year. Obviously, their running back game wasn't horrible. Quinshawn got hurt a few times this season, but when he played, he looked really good, I do have to say. They have been making some O-line moves during free agency. But the quarterback position, another one of those teams where it's kind of up in the air. All these teams have quarterback issues except for the Titans, who Cam Woods is their franchise guy. Because everyone thought, Shedeur, he earned the starting spot, might as well let him go for a season. But then we have people on the Browns saying, Deshaun Watson could probably fight for it. What are you talking about, bro? Deshaun Watson shouldn't even be in the league. How is he getting paid, bro? The things that this dude has done. He's literally getting paid to be injured. And I don't know if I want to get into that, but, it's just a poverty organization. And then at 27, this is going to be, a little interesting, I do have to say. But I kind of want to hear your feedback on this. I'm going to put the Giants there. Obviously, the Giants, none of them are ever healthy at the same time. But you have Cam Scatterboot coming off that really bad injury. Jackson Dart, obviously, I think has a lot of upside and potential. And then if Malik Neighbors could be healthy, he could be a top 10 wide receiver in the league. Except for, I think, before free agency, their defense looked a lot scarier than it does now. Obviously, they traded Dexter Lawrence a few days ago to the Bengals. They lost a lot of their secondary during free agency. And then, of course, they're trying to shop Kayvon Thibodeau. That really just leaves Abdul Carter to be their superstar in defense. And if anything holds him back this season, I think it's going to be the defense. At 26, another team that I think is really similar to how the Giants were last year. They're going to get a lot of nice pieces in the draft. I think they have a lot of young talent. But I just don't think it's going to transfer to the production. Obviously, Clint Kubiak is coming in to be a first-time head coach. He looked real good and transformed, that whole Seahawks offense, along with Mike McDonald, to make, Jackson Smith, the best wide receiver, to make sure Sam Darnold had another good season like he did with the Vikings. Obviously, I do like the Raiders. This is the only thing I'm going to assume. I know I said I'm not going to take the draft into account. They're going to get Fernando Mendoza. That's just what's going to happen. We all know it. Honestly, I think that this team could be a lot higher in the power rankings. Obviously, their defense looks very good. Their linebackers look like a top 5 linebacker duo in the league. They kept Max Crosby. We'll have to see how that turns out. But as of right now, he's on the team. Ashton Jeanty has some high potential. But I just think it's going to be another season of not being so good. So at 25, to round up this 25 to 32, I'm going to have the Saints. The Saints have a lot of defensive questions rather than offensive questions. Obviously, on offense, Tyler Shook looks like to be their guy. Chris Olave is really good, I do have to say. Their run game is kind of up in there, with Alvin Kamara. And then some defensive, they don't really have much secondary. I know they've quit McKinstry. But other than that, they let Alontae Taylor walk in free agency. They haven't brought in any edge help, really. I did like the Caden Elwes signing, but other than that, a lot of questions up in the air. At 24, surprising one, I'm going to put the Chiefs. The Chiefs, I don't expect much out of them, to be honest. I mean, obviously, Patrick Mahomes is coming off that torn ACL. I don't think he's going to be like he was before. Their running game, I also don't love. Their wide receiver games, Rashee Rice, obviously a very good wide receiver. Xavier Worthy hasn't produced what we thought he was going to. And their biggest issue, their defense. No secondary. They didn't bring in any other replacements for the Jalen Watson or the Trent McDuffie. I just forgot that they did sign Kenneth Walker, which I also don't agree with. They spent a lot of money on a running back, which, he's a good running back. But to spend all of their free agency money on him instead of actual pieces that they need. And then they have no pass rush help. Chris Jones did not look good at all last season. And this is the downfall of the dynasty, I think. Obviously, the Chiefs have overcome much more bigger struggles. And they're going to prove everyone and probably be an amazing team this season. But right now, I'm putting them at 24. At 23, I'm going to have the Panthers. Obviously, the Panthers are coming off a season where they just went to the playoffs. But the Panthers have this issue where they would win a game, then lose a game. The issue with the Panthers is they play to the level of their opponents. If they're playing a top 10 team, they'll play like a top 10 team. If they're playing a bummy team like the Browns, they'll end up losing because they're going to end up playing like the Browns. I think it's really interesting how they do that. But obviously, they have some young pieces like McMillan. They signed Jalen Phillips. Their defense isn't awful. J.C. Horn, Mike Jackson. But still, the division, I feel like anyone could take the NFC South. So, they don't have the consistency enough that I would say that they're above this 23rd power ranking. And then at 22, I'm going to have their rival in the Falcons. The Falcons, I think, have potential. It's just untapped. And I think Kevin Stefanski, their new head coach, could really tap into that. Obviously, their quarterback questions up in there with Tua and Michael Penix. But other than that, I think Bijan, is the top 5 running back. He could really take over that offense. Drake London, top 15 wide receiver in the league, could take over. Defensive, as of right now, James Pierce could be playing. He looked really good as rookie year. Jalen Walker looked good. Their secondary is good. Jesse Bates, AJ Terrell. Their defensive isn't awful. I know there's some O-line holes. They could use a wide receiver too. I don't know who their wide receiver 2 is because they did lose Darnell Mooney. So that will be something to address, but they also fall at 22 for a reason. At 21, I'm going to have the Commanders. Jaden Daniels is getting injured a lot, I do have to say. Their wide receiver room is questionable right now. They have Terry McLaurin. Other than that, I think it's Dyami Brown. Because they let Debo walk and no one has signed him yet as of right now. So maybe they could bring him back on an extremely bet minimum deal. But still, I do like all the defensive moves that they made during free agency. And I think it brings the defense to a top 10 defense. But there's only so much the defense could do. They also don't have very much of a prominent running game. Bill, I don't know if he's their future guy. They signed Rashard. And then at 20th, I'm going to have the Cowboys. Another division rival after them. But I don't know. The Cowboys are in this weird state where they're kind of win now, but they're kind of rebuilding. I don't really know what to make out of it. Obviously, their offense, is really good. They made Javonte Williams look really good. They have George Pickens, CD, Dak, who, is an underrated quarterback. I think he's overhated. Their O-line isn't horrendous. But their defensive has a lot of questions. They traded Micah, but then traded for Quinn Williams. And then other than that, they don't really have much pass rush help. They don't really have a linebacker right now. Their secondary isn't amazing. And for real, that's the only reason why they're kind of this low. At 19, I'm going to have the Buccaneers. Obviously, they had a fall off in the second half of that season where I think now Baker's longevity in Tampa is on question now. If he doesn't perform to the high standards this year, I think it's out with Baker, out with Todd Bowles. Emeka Ibuka looked amazing this year, I have to say. Bucky Irvin did not play much. And then other than that, their defense is okay. They lost Jamel Dean, didn't really replace him. They don't have amazing pass rush. I don't think they used their free agency money that well. They went out and paid Kenneth Gainwell $7 million. Is then Alex Angeloni, obviously could be a replacement to Levante David. But other than that, I don't really love this team. As I said before, their division, anyone could really take it between the Bucks, Falcons, Panthers, or Saints. So I think they're going to have to do something crazy in the draft to maybe have higher potential. At 18, I'm going to have the Steelers, close to halfway, like that 9-8. But actually, the Steelers could easily be a top 15, top 10 team. Obviously, with the moves for like Michael Pittman, Jamel Dean, I think they made a lot of actually really nice moves. But the only thing is, as I said before, we're doing a who's on the team right now. Aaron Rodgers is not signed. So that's one reason it's low, because technically, in this power rankings, Mason Rudolph's the starting QB. And without Aaron, I don't know what Aaron Rodgers is doing. He's taking a sweet old time with the draft coming up. If Aaron Rodgers chooses not to sign, they have to draft someone. Because obviously, you can't just run with Mason Rudolph. At 17, I'm going to have the Colts. I just don't think the Colts are going to recreate, that magic from the first half of last season, including with Danny Dimes coming off that bad injury. But, he could prove us wrong. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor, top 5 running back. They did pay a lot of money to Alec Pierce, and now that wide receiver room is kind of thin. Obviously, they had one of the most, wide receiver rooms with the most depth last season, and they just lost most of it, to be honest. I think they overpay Alec Pierce. They let Michael Pittman go for a 6th rounder. They traded A.D. Mitchell at the deadline last year. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know who the wide receivers are. But then, other than that, on defense, you don't got anyone. I know they were trying to make that big move for Trey Hendrickson before he went to the Ravens. But they really don't have amazing pass rush. Obviously, their secondary, as of right now, Kenny Moore is still on the team, Sauce Gardner. But I don't love it. At 16, I'm more of the Vikings. The Vikings are really only here because of their QB question. I think their defense could still be up, to a top 15 defense. They do need some more help on the D-line, maybe a safety. But obviously, Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, the top 5 wide receiver duo in the league. They do have some questions in the backfield, as I said, with QB and running back, because Jordan Mason and Aaron Jones are on expiring deals this year. But I just don't think J.J. McCarthy could be the guy. And then the other question is, if they choose Kyler Murray to be the guy, I don't think he can't perform in the outdoor games, against the Packers and the other teams in the North. At 15, I'm going to have to go with the 49ers. Obviously, the 49ers could be a top 10 team. I wouldn't hate anyone saying that. The only reason they're at 15, let me rephrase this. 50% of their team is coming off of season-ending injuries like Achilles and ACL. So, you just got to take that into account, because maybe the players won't be as good as they were. They do need some O-line help. Their defense isn't awful, but as I said, they're all coming off injuries, so we'll just have to see how they come back. At 14, I'm going to have the Packers. The Packers, my only question with them is, what are you doing with wide receivers? Obviously, let Romeo Doubs walk, but then they traded Wicks to the Eagles, which just leads Matthew Golden and Christian Watson there, which Christian Watson has a frequent injury history, and then Matthew Golden is really short. I mean, he did look good during the playoffs that one game, but still, I just don't love him for that. At 13, I'm going to have the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars' offense is still highly productive. Trevor Lawrence is still there. Their wide receiver room is actually really stacked. Actually, I guess not, because I did just take into account that Travis Hunter is not a wide receiver anymore. But Parker Washington could easily be that wide receiver too. BTJ is still there, even though he didn't produce well last season. And their defense still has a few questions, I have to say, in that linebacker room and pass rush area. But their secondary now with Travis Hunter being there isn't awful. Their running back room is another question. I guess it would be 2 in, because they let Travis Etienne walk, someone who I did not even consider. But I don't know if he would be much of a game changer for the Saints, right? At 12, I'm going to have the Chargers. I'm still going to ride on their success from last season. I know they can't produce in the playoffs, but these are just power rankings, and during the regular season, they're a better than capable team of being a top 5 team, of being a top 10 team. I mean, Justin Herbert, obviously Marion Hampton was injured most of the season, which I think he has some high potential he could tap into, right? Their wide receiver room has extremely a lot of depth. Defensively, secondary good. Their defensive line isn't horrible. Obviously, they had some injuries last season too. And not even to mention, their O-line is really good when healthy too. At 11, I'm going to have the Ravens. The Ravens are an interesting team because their defense never produces to the talent that they have. Obviously, with Trey Hendrickson now, it's going to be a little bit better. And I'm going to be interested to see, with the hiring of Jesse Minter, who mainly, he was a defensive coordinator. So he has more of a defensive head coach in mind, and maybe he could utilize these players better. But obviously, I think where they struggle is in the receiving game. Zay Flowers, I don't know how they managed to make him wide receiver 1 for all this time. They lost Isaiah Likely during free agency. Their O-line is really in question, losing Tyler Linderbaum. To be honest, I think what really messed him up was, backing out of that Max Crosby trade. I think if they went through, it would be a lot different. Because they didn't sign anyone because they thought they had to pay Max Crosby all this money, and then they lost a lot of people. At 10, I'm gonna have the Patriots. To be honest, I don't love the Patriots. They lost a lot of players during free agency because they had that amazing season last year. They were schedule merchants, but their wide receiver room's looking pretty bare. Their running backs, Travion Henderson, I really like him as a player, but defensive too. They don't have a lot of pass rush. They don't really have a safety, and I don't know what they were doing by that signing Romeo Doubs is big old dude. He's not a wide receiver 1. At number 9, I'm gonna have the Bengals. A team that I think, when healthy, could easily make a playoff run. Could easily win the AFC North, to be honest. Obviously, I think I'm putting them as high because I think their free agency defensive moves are pretty good. Obviously, signed Boye Mafe, just traded for Dexter Lawrence, which maybe they overpaid a little bit before, but obviously, Dexter Lawrence is a top 5 defensive tackle in this league. Their secondary could use a little bit of help, I do have to admit. The wide receivers we know are good, Jamar and T. Joe Burrow, when healthy, top 5 quarterback. Chase Brown's a really good running back. O-line is really where they struggle the most. And then winning the big time games, obviously, they struggle with too. Alright, we're getting to the top 8 here. At number 8, I'm going to have the Lions. The Lions' window for the Super Bowl is slowly closing. But I still think that they're a top 10 team in this league. And if the Lions were playing either the Bengals or the Patriots, I think the Lions still win. Obviously, they looked really bad last season, but they had a lot of injuries on defense. Aiden Hutchinson's still a really good player. Their wide receiver room's one of the best, I would say. Jahmyr Gibbs, now the bell cow, could go crazy with like a 2,000-yard season. Jared Goff, I don't know if I really love him as the capable quarterback. One week he could have a 3 interceptions game, so he could throw a 5 touchdown game. It's really 50-50, and I just think they need more consistency. At number 7, I am one of the Bears. This could just be recency biased because they were so good last season. But honestly, if they make a few defensive moves in the draft, I wouldn't doubt seeing them making a deep playoff run. They almost beat the Rams in the playoffs last season. Their offensive line, amazing. Caleb Williams is their guy. Their wide receiver room, I really like too. Colston Loveland, their tight end, he played outstanding in those primetime games. At number 6, I'm going to have the Eagles. I do have the Eagles this high right now because A.J. Brown's technically still on the team, as I said before. Because obviously Saquon is digressing, as we saw from the last 2 seasons. But Jalen Hurts needs to learn to throw the ball because you got right now A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Wicks. I don't really know who else is on that team, but they slowly have been losing some defensive pieces over the last few years. But they signed Tariq Woolen in free agency. So now their secondary isn't awful. You got Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Then you got Tariq Woolen now. They did lose Reed Blankenship, which I don't think they've replaced him yet. Their O-line is still amazing, obviously. At 5, I'm going to have the Bills. I just don't think the Bills always make it so close, but they can never get there. I don't really love the defense. Obviously the defense isn't horrible. It will get the job done because their offense produces so well. But Josh Allen, they got DJ Moore, which I think they overpaid for too. But DJ Moore and Khalil Shakir could get the job done, right? Their O-line isn't awful. And at the end of the day, Josh Allen's still a top 3 quarterback, so anything could be done here, right? I'm not saying that, being number 5 in the power rankings is, awful, right? Obviously, they still have a shot at the Super Bowl. At number 4, I have the Texans. I think the Texans, only if Caesar Stroud could just be an average QB, they could do anything, right? They started 0-3 last season. Could have easily made the Super Bowl if Caesar Stroud played, as I said, average football. Their defense, number 1. And they didn't really make much changes. In fact, they just gained pieces. They gained Reed Blankenship. I'm sure they're going to draft somewhere in the first round for a defensive side. Nico Collins was out during the playoffs, right? Tank Dell is coming back. who he may not play at the same level, right? But then they still got Jaden Higgins. That's a capable wide receiver room. Running back still also in the air if they want to run with Woody Marks, or I know Nick Chubb they did not bring back. Their O-line and D-line are the only two needs. And if they can get those needs filled up, easily a Super run. At number 3, I have the Broncos, the team who should have been the Super Bowl if Bo Nix did not get injured. You know, that was really the downfall. And even Jared Sam still could have easily won that game if it wasn't a snow game, right? But their defense is obviously really good. And the game changer, which I consider putting them in 4 or 5, but the Jalen Waddle trade, now Bo Nix actually has like a capable wide receiver 1. Cortland Sutton, who's still there, who he has that strong connection with. And then Jalen Waddle. Obviously, I don't really know if I love the running game, but who cares when you have one of the best defenses and the best O-line? You can just throw that ball every time these amazing wide receivers. And then at number 2, I'm going to have the Seahawks. You know, they lost some pieces after winning the Super Bowl, including that secondary, but and running back is a big hole that they haven't filled with. I'm sure they'll fill in the draft, but they're bringing back most of these pieces, like Raheed Shaheed and the wide receivers. They're bringing back D-line, bringing back O-line. They're still capable of easily making a Super Bowl run, but the one team that could easily stop them, the Rams at number 1. Matthew Stafford obviously coming off that MVP run. And then they've been going all in, let's be honest. Their secondary is now kind of stacked. You know, they got Trent McDuffie, Jalen Watson. Off the edges, you got Jared Verse. You have Nate Landman as linebacker. Your O-line isn't awful, but then you're throwing it to Puka and Devontae Adams. You got Kyron Williams, Blake Corum. It's this team I personally think is easily number 1 in the power rankings right now. And yeah, that's my power rankings, guys. In case you guys fast forward, it's read from left to right. But obviously these power rankings are going to shift based on what teams end up deciding in the draft. And obviously, you know, trades further down the lines and signings. But as of right now in time, these are the standings. Obviously, they're casual, as I always say. If you guys even watch, maybe consider liking or subscribing. It would mean a lot. And I'll see you guys.